Well, welcome. Let me ask, is there anybody, give a thumbs up if you were in the last session?
I recognize
Okay, so
all those names.
everybody was there. That's great. Okay, because that helps to know how to get us started here. Um, Kavita talked about vision and what we hold as our visions for teaching and learning. Talked about that a little bit, and we also talked about vision as a theme for how to um, develop our views as educators. And this session is designed to help you get a sense of how we think about teacher education and how we think about teaching and learning in general that we want to develop for the students in our program, both if you're going into pre-service or you're going into ES or learning sciences. So one of the things that um, is fundamental to doing that for us to giving you our sense of our vision is to have you be learners. And that's a theme that you'll see across many of experiences in your courses, that doing activities where you are the learners is the best way for you to come to a deeper sense of what learning and teaching means. I do this in a very explicit way in our elementary science methods classes and some of the STEM classes and some of the classes on that relate to ideas of culture and cognition that I teach. But you'll find this in all of our classes in some way. And I believe that this is one of the things that makes our program unique in really grounding teachers, not in just in learning how to do lesson plans or thinking about curriculum, but thinking about what does learning and teaching mean in those settings, and how do you get a sense of learning and teaching from experiencing your own learning and then reflecting on that. So today we're going to engage in an activity that I've designed to work pretty well online. There we go. And the sort of pedagogical approach that we're using today is called an inquiry. But you'll find that inquiry is both an approach to teaching science that the people have made pretty explicit, but it's also an orientation to how to think about pedagogy that we feel is really important. So the inquiry we're going to do today is called Bird in a Cage. And it's based on an exhibit at the Exploratorium, which is a science museum. And I know many of you are going to be teachers of other disciplines, but we will have a conversation at the end here about what this type of experience means to teaching other settings. So I'm going to describe a little bit about the exhibit and then sort of frame how we're going to do it, and then I'll get you involved in doing it, and we're going to come back and reflect on it. So this is the exhibit, the way that it looks in the Exploratorium. And another thing that I want to try to do, and Kavita set this up really nicely in the previous session, is to have us interact about things. And I know that's hard on Zoom because it helps when we have our videos off, it helps when we have our audio on, and we can really just jump in and talk. But I have no problem with wait time. I'll give you some time to think, because when it's really important for our ideas to get out so that we can share them together and think and learn and think about learning together. So this is how it looks there, and we'll probably come back and look at it again. But there's that picture of a cage, and then there's these beautiful graphic versions of birds on each side. So what's going on with that? We're going to use this inquiry structure for learning science content, which is, again, kind of a pedagogical structure that I like because it gives structure. In my session, discussion with um, the candidates who were giving their ideas earlier, they talked about the importance of play and how they're drawn to teaching because they see how important playful learning is. But then they were also wondering about how do you set it up so the kids learn what they need to learn, and how do you keep play as an important central part of teaching as kids grow older beyond preschool. And I think that one of the things that's key to that is structure, is finding a kind of pedagogical structure that gives you enough focus to really engage in developing an idea together, and but then enough freedom so that you really have a sense of exploration. And that's why I use this structure, because it gives us a sense of, we're going to do some starters first that are based on phenomena that we want students to explore. And you use materials, make observations. And then the second phase is doing a focused investigation. And that's where you'll take the questions that you have and think about, well, what can I do to explore these questions? And one of the key sort of mindsets to have when you're working with learning and play and inquiry in this way is that the goal of using the questions is not to have you find a right answer. It's not to conduct your investigation so you're finding one single right answer, but it's actually just to help you figure out and maybe even come up with more questions, but figure out something that makes sense to you. Then the third phase is sharing understanding. Here, the idea is for you to share your results, share what you figured out, share what you wonder, and to continue thinking about the science concepts or concepts in any discipline that you might use this structure for. So we're going to use that structure today, but we're also going to stop at the end and think about, well, what type of learning did we just experience? How did it support our thinking about teaching and learning? And how might it relate to other disciplines? So we have a lot to do in the next hour and a half. So here we go. The way that bird in a cage is set up as an inquiry is that the first thing we're going to do is to explore the bird in a cage phenomena and come up with questions. Then we're going to form into partner groups and plan and go into phase two, that focused investigation, where we're going to plan and investigate ways of seeing further that start with your question. So this bird in a cage idea is about ways of seeing, both with your eyes and with your more conceptual vision. And then looking back up to going from phase two to phase three, that's when you and your partner are going to think about what you want to share, how you want to share it, any things that you've noticed, whatever you've figured out. And then we'll take time for each pair to have some ways to think of, to share what they thought about and what they figured out about this phenomena that's actually called after images. All right, so I am wanting to see everybody here. Okay. Looks like we just have 4 students. So the way this works is there's 2 questions to keep in mind to start. What do you wonder? What do you notice? And what do you wonder? And we're going to look at the phenomena. Here's the phenomena. I want everybody to try this. There's a big red bird on the screen with a little black dot for the eye. I want you to just focus on that black dot. Now, focus on that on the black dot in the red bird. Okay, now switch and look in the cage. All right, and everybody's gonna need to turn their audio on so I can hear you, we can hear each other, because I wanna know what you see. What do you see when you look in the cage?
I see a bird, the same shape bird, but it's blue.
Okay. What else? What do other people see? Wendy and is it Yu Ying and Jenny? What do you see?
I see the bird kind of expanding a little bit before.
Expanding, you said?
Yeah, like getting bigger and larger.
Mm-hmm. Yu Ying, I see, and Wendy, I see you unmuting. What do you notice?
I just have a same observation with Emily that the bird in the cave is turned to the blue. So yeah.
And it turned blue. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Wendy, what do you notice?
Oh yeah. I also see a kind of a blue bird in the cage, with a white dot.
You noticed a white dot. Okay. Cool. Now we're gonna, and I want you to jot down in your notes right now any kinds of questions that are coming up for you about that. Okay. I'm also going to ask if, after we do this next piece of it, if you all can turn on your videos, if you can, if you feel comfortable, because it would be a little bit easier to have the conversation that way. Let's try this. We're going to go to another screen and I want you to follow these directions, okay? Now you see a green bird with a black dot for the eye. And I want you to do the same thing. Focus on that black dot for 30 seconds, starting now. Okay, now look at the cage. Okay, what do you notice? What do you wonder?
So this time I saw a purple bird in the cage, with white dot as the eye, and also it's like moving with my eyes, and is like fading slowly.
Great. What else? What else do other people notice?
I just noticed that the bird is also changed to purple and the images is much clearer than the red bird at the last pages we showed. So I don't know whether it's a time I just watching the green birds for maybe much longer than the last or not. So I'm just wondering that.
Interesting. Okay, what else? You can say that you've noticed the same thing or maybe noticed something different. I don't know.
Yeah, I just noticed the same thing.
Great. So here we go. I'm going to, now I want you to jot down some questions that you have about this phenomena. And it can be any kind of question, right? And while you're jotting it down, I'm going to share the slides with you and you'll be able to see that there is a slide that's coming up that where you can type your questions in, right? So the bird in the cage phenomena, just to help us to talk about this, maybe write your questions, is to let you know that that phenomena, what we're seeing when we look in the cage is called an after image, right? That's just a word that might help us in our work, but yeah, we're just going to use it that way. We're going to call it an after image. All right, and I'm going to share I have to get out of this. I can share this with you. Edit, copy that link. And put it in the chat. Okay, so there's a link to the slides. When you get that link, please go to slide 9. What are you wondering about this phenomena of bird in the cage, the after image? When I point to your question, please read yours out loud. So I'm pointing to the first one there.
I believe the after image has something to do with the processes in my eyes. What is that process that is occurring?
This one.
So why did the birds change colors?
Great. And how about this one?
Is it only when I look at the bird's eye that I could see the bird in the cage again, or can I see another part of the bird?
When you say another part, so is it only when I look at let's imagine doing, this was Yu Ying.
Yep.
Was that yours? Okay, so it's only when I look at the bird's eyes that I can see the bird in the cage again. Can I see another part? Can you say more of what you mean by that question? Can I see another part?
Like, can I see like, maybe the head of the bird, or maybe the legs of the bird, or maybe the tails of the bird?
So you're saying when you focus during that 30
Yeah,
seconds,
yeah, that is what I
if
mean.
you focus on, say, the tail or something else, and you look in the cage, would it do the same thing? Would you still see the same after image?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
great.
sorry, a little bit confused.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to understand your question because it's a great one. All right, I'm going to show you some questions from another group that I did this with in my teacher thinking and learning class last fall. One person said, why did the bird slide down and to the left for me? Why did I see the first bird for so much longer than the second? Another said, why will the green bird's silhouette last longer than the red? I think that one of you noticed, it seemed that the one color lasted longer. Does the color, this is a big class, sorry. Does the color of the bird's eye matter, or does staring at the eye even matter? That's related to what you just said, Ying, and what happens if there's no eye? Does the background color make a difference to the color of the image? And so what if you had a green bird in a black background and produced a purple silhouette, a darker purple silhouette, maybe something like that? Is this phenomena related to rods and cones in your eyes? That was one question that somebody asked. And I'll explain to you in a second why I made that green. What is the minimum amount of time we need to stare at the eye before our brain can register the after image? And why does the after image fade away, and what causes the bird image to float, for the bird after image to float? Why does the bird change color? Why does the image move downward? How long do you need to stare at the bird so that you can see the image? Why does the bird only appear on the left side of the bird cage? So that happens for coffee. So do you see how all these different kinds of questions came from that phenomena, right? There's a couple things I want to point out before so you're going to be choosing one of these to start with for your investigation and with a partner. But I want to point out a couple things. One is this question of, is this phenomena related to the cones in your eyes? It relates a little bit to the question, part of the question that I think Wendy had about what the process that's going on in your eyes. And this is a type of question that, number one, is a yes or no question. Is the phenomena related to the rods or cone in your eyes? Well, the answer could be yes. The answer is either yes or no. And you could look that up on the web, right? You just look it up, find that out. But that's not what we're doing today. We are investigating. We're trying to figure out what we can do to figure out something. And the way that Wendy framed her question of, I believe that the after image has something to do with the processes in my eyes. What is that process that is occurring? Well, that's something that, if you tweak it a little bit, could lead into doing something, right? You could also look it up on the web, right? But we want to see how we can make this an investigation. So when you think about that for a second, what's the difference between something that you can investigate and something that you just find an answer for? Because the questions that we would just look up on the web, that's not, I have a friend who calls this type of question a Quindy Watt, which is questions we will not deal with at this time. Okay. Could be for later, could be after explanation, could be, a different type of exploration. Sometimes people might say something like, does the after image have anything to do with the way that you see stars shining in the sky, right? Great question. Or, why the rainbow comes around the moon at night, something like that. That's a great question, but that's not something we're going to deal with at this time for many reasons. One, because the area of science that I'm asking you to explore is not quite there. But the other is that the materials that we can share together are not going to help us answer that particular question. You see where I'm going? Okay, so I wanted to show you the other questions just because that gives us a little bit bigger set of questions to look at. And I want you to think about what one of these questions might you want to start with. Could be something about, and in the same slide deck, I just left all the stuff that's there, and it's after slide 21. So there's stuff from other classes, other things that other people have done. I don't want you to look beyond 24, but if you want to get an idea of other questions, you can look at slide 22 and 23. So we've got slide 9, where your questions are. We've got slide 22 and 23, where there's some other questions. And I want you to think about, I'm going to give you about 20 minutes as soon as we get ourselves organized. And I want you to think about which one you would like to explore. Okay? So I'm going to give you just a second to think about that. We're going to share that and then see if we can form 2 groups so that you can work with someone else on this. Okay, Emily, what question are you interested in?
I thought the why did the birds change colors question was interesting.
Okay. Now, I want you to think about when it's a why question, it's can be a little bit difficult to figure out what to do. So you might want to change it to what can I do to help me figure out why the birds change colors? Okay. And I'm going to show you some materials that might help you with that in just a second. Ying, what question do you have in mind?
I do have like 2 questions I really wanted to know. The first one is what I made, and the next one is like why the birds change just like the animals.
So why did birds change colors?
Mm-hmm.
What was your first question?
So my first question is, can I say another part of the bird so maybe can have the same
Oh
images?
yeah, the one about seeing another part of the bird.
Yeah.
Okay. And Wendy, what are you thinking about?
The question I want to explore is, does the black dot, the bird's eye, matter, like in forming the after image? Like if I stare at the other parts of the bird, can I also see the after image? Like,
So I hear some nice overlap here in what you all want to look at. I think what I'm going to do is to have 2 of you work together, and then I'll work with one of you. So how about Wendy and Ying? You both are interested in this piece of what's happening with another part of the bird. Does a black dot matter? That type of thing. And then Emily, you're interested in thinking about why the birds change colors, right? So let me show you some of the materials I'm going to ask you to use to explore this. And then we'll kind of check in on how to get started on this. So right after your question, so what we all that we just did was the starter, right? It was getting us into the phenomena, helping us choose questions. Now that we've sort of focused in on some of the questions, we're going to do our investigation. And ideally, if we have enough people, we would work with a partner to investigate the after image and phenomena. And I think it's really important to not just do this by yourself, because there's so much that can happen in interaction. So that's why I'm trying so hard to make sure we have partners. And then you want to start, when you're doing this investigation, you want to start with the inquiry question that you share. And then the materials for this inquiry are actually on slides. So we're using this Google Slides presentation as our space to conduct the investigation, right? So if you look at, now, and you can use other things on the web too, but this is where you can start from. So if you look at slide 11, here's some ideas for materials and resources that you can use. You can copy any of these shapes. I just put like a big arrow with and different sizes of dots and the regular bird that we started from and a big red pentagon, right? With a dot in it. You could use those things and you could change them. What are some of the ways you might change them in order to explore something?
change the size. I
Change the
rotate
size.
them.
Mhm. Rotate
Uh,
them. Mhm. Any of those
move
types of
the-
things. Mhm. On the next page, very simple, a big black square and a red circle with a little black dot on it. You could try that. On slide 13, there's a big lightning bolt and a big pink square. These are just things that sort of build on some of the kinds of questions, just fundamentally. But you might go to the web and find, something in Google Images that you want to use, or you might want to anything that you want. On slide 14, there are some little videos and what they call snacks from the Exploratorium. Materials and you might have paper at home with that are different colors and that sort of thing, but I just wanted to give you another way of seeing some of the things that you might explore. So between the slides that are 11, 12, 13, the links that are on 14, and anything you might look for in the web, but I didn't want to just open up the web because it actually can get you a little further afield. If you go to the web, I want you to be very conscious about what you're looking for. Are you looking for a particular kind of shape? Are you looking for a graphic version of it? Are you so I don't want you to get lost out there in the web. But I do want you to copy and modify any of these templates to do your focused investigation with your partner. You can modify, copy, and add to the slides as you like to explore your question. And you can also create different kinds of slides to develop your question. So there is a template that I'm going to give you that helps you to get started on this. And I think I got to copy that. I'll put it back up here, but I'll show you an example from one of the other groups. So this was a time where two students, Coffee and Becky, were working together. They wrote down their focus question and they wrote down what they figured out. And then in the slides after it, they showed what they did. Like they made a different color bird. Paloma and Mandy did this. They did your names, focus question, and then they wrote some conclusions, but they had other slides that showed how they explored after that. So that's the template that I'm going to make for you so that you can work that way. And then I'm going to give you about, I don't know, maybe about 15 minutes to explore this. So I'll just take this out so you have it. And then you can copy slide 16 as your template to do your work. Does that make sense? So I'm going to put Wendy and Yu Ying into a separate breakout group. And then Emily and I will stay together. So I'm going to put breakout room.
I do have a question. So we can choose our focus questions, right? Or are you going to give us the focus
Oh,
question?
no. The point is for you to choose your own.
Okay.
So we've talked about several, right? So
Mhm.
we talked about the ones that you came up with from your starter. We looked at some examples from another class. And it seemed like you and Wendy were focusing in on this idea of what happens when you look at another part of the bird. Right?
Mm.
That might lead you also into thinking about, does the dot matter? Right? Or is something about the shape of the dot different? But I really want you to start with that focus question, but it might lead you to other things you want to explore. And that's fine too.
Okay. Sure.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. So I'm putting Wendy and Yu Ying into room 1 and then Emily and I will stay here in the main room. Okay, and I'll check back. I'll come over and check with you in a few minutes, but let's try to work until just a little bit after 11:30. Okay. Great. Okay, Emily, what are we gonna do here?
In terms of the question, why do the colors change? I guess changing it to more of a how question would be a better start, I think.
Quickly then. Copy this slide. And your name here. So do you see what I created? I created slide 17 there.
Mhm.
Did I,
Yes.
or no, what did I do? Yeah, I'm on 17. All right, type the question that you want. Oh, you're thinking about how to make that how shift, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can change it to how do the colors change? But
Something about how the colors changing affects the after image.
yes.
Okay.
Or maybe even how is the color of the after image affected by the original color?
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Okay.
Do you have time to type it that way?
Yes, I just have to, I lost the document. Let me find it. Oh, here we go. Okay. Yes, I can type that one in.
Great. So what could we do? We're gonna need something to help us figure that out.
Yeah, so something I was thinking about while thinking of this, I've actually seen this phenomenon before online a few
cool.
times.
Yeah.
And I think I've noticed, and I could be wrong because I'm not great with art isn't my special subject, so I can't remember, but it seems that it's usually the color of the after image is like the opposite of the original color. I could be wrong on that. Like with the first image, the first bird was red, and then seeing the after image, it was blue. And so looking at having original images of different colors and seeing comparing what the colors of the after images are and seeing if there's a pattern there.
I really like what you described because it seems like we could set up some slides here where we had shapes that are one color.
Yeah.
And then we look at what happens in the cage and seeing if they're different color. So do you have time to maybe at least set up a slide, and I'm gonna put a blank slide in here and make some shapes that show some of the different original colors that you want to explore?
I think so. Should I put all the shapes on one slide?
Sure. So see how I made slide 18, and I can help too. If you tell me some colors and maybe a couple colors, and I'll get some shapes up there, and you put a couple colors. What colors do you want me to find?
I was thinking it would be interesting to see maybe the red bird again, and then maybe a blue bird. That way we could see if the blue bird, we see red as an after image.
Ah, nice. Okay. So I'll go find a red bird. There's one on slide 11. Okay. And what colors or shapes do you colors do you want to find?
I can do. Is it possible to change the color of the bird from here, or should I try to use the arrow because that's blue? But that's a different shape.
I can tell you that in a second.
Or
I think that's an image. I think the bird is
Yeah.
an image.
I think
So-
maybe instead we could use the arrow because I think you can change the color of the arrow.
Yep,
So we can
Yep,
use a
I
red
agree.
arrow and a blue arrow.
I agree. The blue arrow. Copy that and make a red arrow. And what other color do you want to try?
Maybe purple. I would have to look up what the opposite of purple is though.
Mhm.
Um,
And what kind of purple? Okay, so we're gonna leave the blue. Okay,
mhm.
okay, so we want kind of going like this. So we've got the red arrow and the blue arrow and the purple arrow.
Mhm.
That's enough to kind of get at the idea. And
Yeah.
then we could make some kind of frame. It doesn't have to be a cage, it can be anything, some kind of frame to look into.
Yeah. Let's see.
Like that. Or but it shouldn't have a color.
Mm,
That makes it too.
could be. Or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
And then, I think based on past experiences again, there needs to be a dot to stare at, I think, within each of the shapes.
It does, yeah. I mean that might help. So do you want to grab a dot and put in?
Yep, I can grab.
All right, here we go. Do you have 2 minutes to try this?
Yes. Yeah, I think
Okay.
as long as I leave by, I'm gonna say latest 11:30, I think I should be fine.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So we can actually try it with less time too. We can try it with 20 seconds.
Okay.
Let's look at the blue, because we kind of know the red is going to be turn up kind of
Yes.
greenish blue.
Yes.
So let's look at the blue. Ready, go.
Something I realized, I think it's funny because I think the purple one actually showed up, the after image for the purple one showed up. So I think maybe part of it is maybe only having one shape per
They're too close.
page. Yeah, maybe
close
too
on-
close.
Okay.
But I don't know about you, but for the purple one, I actually saw the purple one more clearly than the blue one. And the purple one showed up yellow for me.
Well, maybe they're too close because
I think so.
I definitely saw yellow and I thought I was looking at the blue.
Oh, okay. I don't know. What was weird for me is that even though there are 3 arrows, I only saw 2. So that could have been, but yes, I think a key
Okay.
part of it is having one per page.
So let's okay,
Or we
so
could
need
have
to-
movable white blocks that we cover up, use to cover up.
That's true, but I just quickly made it duplicate.
Oh, okay.
See, I'm on 19.8, so then we can take out on We'll take out the red and the purple on that page. We'll take out, okay, you took out the, so we have the purple left on 18.
Okay. So we're going back to blue, I think.
Try one more time.
Yes. Are we doing blue
The
or purple? Purple?
How about you do purple, I'll do blue.
Okay.
Then we try to get both at the same time.
Sounds good.
Okay, mark it set, go. Okay, let's look over.
Yeah, I see yellow for purple.
And I saw yellow for blue too.
Maybe because they're similar colors, I think. I wonder.
Wow,
I don't know.
that's
But I guess that
interesting.
defeats our hypothesis.
Well, but just let's switch it then. You do blue and see if you see something else. Maybe it's our eyes. I'll do
Okay.
purple. You
Okay.
do blue. On mark it set, go. Okay, look in the box.
I do see yellow again.
I see yellow, but it's a little bit greener to me. It's like it's like a greener yellow than what I saw before.
Okay.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So and I'm going to quickly write on here. Would you say it was a light yellow that you saw on the purple?
Yes.
Or- Okay. And I'll just put this over here. Okay, and then on the red, we know that that's gonna be the light blue. And what are we gonna put on the blue?
I also saw light yellow. I didn't notice another hue or something.
Yeah. So and that's what I saw. I saw light yellow with the blue.
Okay.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Well, we did a little investigating then.
Yes.
And what's one thought about how this helps us with our original question? So the question was, how is the color of the after image affected by the color of the original image? And what's one thing we can say before about what we figured out, and then you go. I'm on slide 17.
A couple of things that I feel based off of the 3 images are, one, it's never the same. The after image has not been the same color as the original. And 2, again, just based off these 3 images, if the original image is a warm color, then the after image is a cool color, and vice versa.
Is a warm color, and the after image is a cool color, and versa. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, pleasure doing a little investigating with you. I know you have to go, and I appreciate you coming, and I hope that you got some experience of how we would do inquiry, even though it was rooted in science. You know, we do this in social studies, we do this in everything. And then we also really use this to think about, well, what do we think about what does this tell us about how learning really happens and
Mhm.
how you want to approach teaching based on that.
Yeah. No, thank you very, very much. I did enjoy this and I do feel I have learned from it. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Welcome. Take care. Have a good day.
You too.
And page
I just want
21.
to point out that where we are in this process, right? So we just did the focused investigation, and
Mhm.
towards the end, you sort of thought about what you want to share. Now we're going into sharing your understandings, which is sharing what you thought about and what you figured out about after image. So that's part 3 of the investigation. And we might not get a chance to do all this, but what we do first want to do is to think about what did you make? What did you investigate? And what did you figure out about after images? And I use the words figure out intentionally because you might not have come to a set answer about the science involved, and that's okay. At this point, it's fine to just say what you figured out based on what you made and what you investigated. All right, so let's go. I'll have you all go first, and then I'll tell you when Emily and I did. So I'm looking at slide. Do you want to run the slides, or do you want me to?
I think Professor, you can run the slide. We're on slide 21, I think.
Yep. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see that right now.
Great. All right. So go ahead.
Yeah. So
you-
maybe you can talk about the shape part.
I just have a quick question. So you want me to, you want us to like see the questions or the things we want, or we figure out, or you wanted
You
to
can
read
say
about that
the
and we can
questions
okay.
and what you did
Mm-hmm.
for the investigation. So show what's on your slides to show what you did, and then what you figured out.
Okay. Oh, just 1 second. My phone has low charge right now, so I'm sorry. Wendy, maybe you
Okay.
can go first. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So our question is, does the black dot matter in creating the after image? More specifically, does the color or shape of the dot matter? So we split our question into 2 parts. First is whether the shape of the dot matter. If we change the shape, whether the after image will change. So our first experiment is on slide 22. So we put the sun in place as the eye, and so Yuying and I actually got very different results. So if we can go back to slide 21. And so Yuying cannot see, we both can see the after image, the whole after image of the bird, but Yuying cannot see this black sun. But I can see the black sun, and the sun disappears faster than the dot, previous little dot in the bird. So that's the shape part. So maybe we figured out that the shape of the dots doesn't really affect the whole after image of the bird, but it does have some effect as to whether we can see the dot itself.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That's cool.
yeah, so yeah, so the second part is about the color of the dot, and so our first move is to change it into white, in a white background. Yeah, so we kept it the dot, the color of the dot the same as the background, and we change it into white. And our conclusion is that we can still see the image, the whole after image of the bird. So I think we figured out that it doesn't matter when we change the color of the dot, as long as it is the same as the background. So then we got to thinking that if we change the color different from the background, so for example, is a white dot on a black background. So as what we did on slide 24, and the result is I can still see the after image, but I cannot see the dot. Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to bother you. So also that is our result. Like the dot will, if the dot has a different background color of the, I mean, if the dot has the different color with the background, maybe we cannot see the after image in the cage. I'm so sorry to bother you, Wendy. Yeah.
No, it's no bother at all.
So when the dot is a different color than the background, when you looked into the cage, you couldn't see the dot at all?
Yeah, I don't know if it's because the dot is very small, but yeah, I can't see the dot in the
So
after image.
did the place where the eyes were, did it look green? Just I'm sorry, did it look whatever that opposite the other color was? It just the bird just looked completely that color?
It for
Interesting.
example, the green bird turns purple, I think. Yeah.
The green bird turned purple, and then you saw just a purple bird with no eye.
No white dot. Yeah.
No white dot or black dot or anything. No dot there.
No, yeah, no dot there.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, cool. So let me share with you what Emily and I did. So the focus question was, how is the color of the after image affected by the color of the original image? Which was a little bit of a shift from her original question, which was, why did the bird's colors change? So we talked a little bit about how that why question can be difficult to help you frame what to do. So we switched it to a how question, right? Because that would help us to figure out what to do. So if we say, how is the color of the after image affected by the color of the original image? Then that gives you something to look at. You can give an original image and look at the after image. And so we chose 3 different original images. We chose the purple, and we set it up. We in our process, we realized that it got a little confusing. Originally, we had the purple and red and blue arrows all on the same slide, and they were too close together. So it was a little bit hard to figure out what we were seeing in the after image. So then we separated them out. We just made this little call out box for our space to look. And for the purple, she saw something that was a little bit light yellow, and I saw something that was a little greenish yellow, still light yellow, but a little on the green side. For the red, we saw that sort of light blue, like we did with the red bird. For the blue, we saw a really clear, like light yellow, like a pale yellow. And one of the things that she was wondering was, that this told us, was that the after image is never going to be the same color as the original. And then we're wondering, and she used these terms that we didn't get a chance to really tease them out, but if the original is a warm color, then the after image is a cool color, or vice versa. So she was starting to think about the way it's different kind of color wheels are set up, and how there are colors on opposite sides. So that's what she was sort of getting at with the warm and the cool. And we were thinking, to continue this, we could have more arrows where we started with what if you had a pale yellow, would that
Oh,
turn
yeah.
out to be blue, right? So
Yeah.
that's where we were going with that, and that was pretty fun. So those are our investigations. Let's think a little bit about. So we thought about what we made. We showed what we investigated, and we showed what we figured out about after images. Now, let's for just a minute here. If I was doing this with a large group, and I've done this, we would have had 5, 6, 7, up to 10 maybe pairs sharing, and there would be lots of different ideas about what happened, right? And so what we would do is we would come together as a whole group and have what I call a science talk, where we would think together about what do we figure out about this bird in a cage of phenomena or after images. And so are there a couple of things that you think now, listening to both your sharing and the sharing from Emily and I, what's just a couple of things that you think you figured out or want to figure out about after images?
Well, about the experiment you and Emily did, I think I figured out that the color of the bird and the after image are always like in complementary colors, I think.
So there's something, it's complementary opposites, there's something about their relationship. Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool. Anything else that we figured out looking at both of these investigations?
About maybe the shape of the dot, maybe is that a kind of a focus point when we look at the image. The shape of it, if it's very complex, like the sun, it is not very likely to stay in the after image. Like
That's
very
interesting.
whole image.
Yeah. Well, that makes me want to understand more about what you focus on influences what you see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you. That helped me to think further about that.
Yeah. Sorry. Like, could you elaborate on like what you said about like what you focus on influence what you see, like in what sense?
Absolutely. So it makes me want to, in specific to this, it makes me want to think more about, well, if the dot is different sizes, because you said there was something about it, what got too complex with the pieces, with the circle and little triangles around, that gave a kind of complexity that somehow didn't carry over into what you see in the cage.
Yeah.
So it helps me think about, well, your eyes are seeing. So is there something about when you're focusing your eyes on something that's too complex, that's not carried over when you look somewhere else? And then it would make me want to think about, size. If you had, if the eye was a really big dot, or it was a really, really tiny dot, or it was a medium-sized dot, is there something about keeping it simple, but then also having it be different sizes? Would that affect what you see?
Yeah.
So
that's sure. That's also what I'm like wondering about the third point we made, like the little white dot on the black background. Like originally we want to explore like whether the change, the desynchronicity of the dot and the background affect anything in the after image. But I think maybe the size of it also matters, because that little white dot is so small. like much smaller than the black dot in the blue, the red bird that we did. Yeah.
Eugene, we can't hear you.
Yeah,
I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you. Can you hear her, Wendy?
No.
Okay.
No, her frame is not like turning green, so maybe there's something wrong with her audio.
I can see her video, but I can't hear her audio. Why don't you try turning your video off and see if your audio will come back in? I still can't hear her. Can you?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna put something
Still
in the
can't.
chat.
Can she hear us? Ying, can you hear us? Oh, okay.
So we still can't hear you. I'm gonna keep us moving, but as soon as you can, we can't hear you, then we definitely want to hear what you have to say. So you'll notice I put a little bit of clues in here of other things you might do if you were using this process of this particular structure for inquiry. At this moment in the sharing understanding, a lot of cool ideas have come out. They could connect to, and they do help to frame some ideas about the science of what's going on with the eye that causes these effects. And if we have time, if you were doing this with a group of kids over, a week, you might have a scientist come in or have some videos shown that really talk about the explanation of what's going on with the after image. But the point of that is that you would not do that in the beginning. And why do you think kids might make more sense of it if you do it at the end after they've done investigation? And Yuying, if you want to type, we can see your chat. If you want to type some idea, that's great.
Yeah. So I think like knowledge always remain with us longer if we find it out ourselves. And like that curiosity really matters. And the process of students actually finding out that outcome, like finding out that phenomenon really matters. It really stays with them, I think, for a very long time. And like the explanation, really what explanation does is giving it a name, I think. Just making them giving them some vocabulary, some accepted knowledge that they can make more sense of what they have already found out. I think this is more effective if you just start with like throwing very big words, throwing concepts at them that they cannot make sense of.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that will like kill their curiosity, which is the most important motive for them to learn anything.
And thank you, Wendy, for sort of framing it, your ideas that way, because that does get to last type of discussion that we would have about this, which is to sort of step back. When I use it in classes, we've also read readings that help us think about this, like some ideas from Eleanor Duckworth and her thinking about how kids come to understandings through from a Piagetian point of view, from Piaget's idea about constructivism. But then we also just think about, as a learner, what does it feel like to engage in this kind of investigation and sense making? What do participation in this investigation? And I could hear where your ideas were pushing us in terms of thinking about, well, this is not just a fun way to teach, but this is actually the way that's going to help kids build their ideas more strongly for themselves, right? So that is one of the themes within our program, is trying to figure out whether it's history or science or physics or chemistry or even thinking about socio-emotional learning. It's what do we do in our teaching to help kids and any of our learners to form ideas for themselves, and to recognize how experiences of diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice are involved in inquiry. And I'm saying this to you now because of time, and I know we need to stop, but I hope that you see how important it is for us. You see how I kept pushing us to not worry about finding the right answer, but to engage in figuring something out, so that your ideas and your work could be valued and you could bring them into the space to help the collective understand. So that sets up a different dynamic in classrooms. That sets up a different culture within classrooms. When you, rather than having the teacher stand and say things to you, the kids know the teacher's going to want to hear our ideas, and we want to hear each other's ideas, and that's what's going to help us to learn. So that's what we aspire to. That's the vision of teaching and learning that we have for our program. It creates a nice metaphor that what we've been focusing on with the after image also hopes to help us focus on ways of thinking about learning and teaching that support diversity and equity in our classrooms. So thank you for hanging in there this whole time. And do you have any other questions for me?
Can you hear me right now? I'm sorry.
Yes, now we can hear you. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So I just have a little bit things for you talk about before, like so when I was doing my student teaching, I always like want the children to do by themselves first, and then they can learn something from what they did, not just I talking to them or I teaching to them. So I really love like the idea you shared before. So yeah, just one thing. Sorry.
Okay. I heard you laugh.
Yeah. Cool.
Sorry, Professor, you just froze.
Yeah,
Did you
frozen
say?
again, so we can hear you.
Amazing.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not sure if it's some interaction between my internet and your internet, but I could not hear everything that you were saying, Eugene. I did hear you say that when you were student teaching, you would have kids focus on getting their own ideas first before sharing with others.
Before I talk to them about the knowledge or the thing I wanted them to know, because I want to hear of their ideas first. Maybe I think most of the time their idea will help me to like maybe to change or fix some lesson plan or something like that, to like, you know, like kids thinking about the different things, they have a wide thinking pattern. So yeah, I can learn a lot of things from them and from my like teaching experiences, I think. So I would really like to hear this.
Mhm. So that's an orientation to teaching. That's a way of thinking about teaching that is very fundamental to our program. That we want teachers to learn to listen to kids' ideas in the ways that you've described that you've been listening. And that is the fact that you see how important that is a wonderful, brings a wonderful strength to your growth as a teacher.
I agree.
Okay, I know it's after time. Thank you very much. And as Kavita said in the beginning, if there's any questions that you have, you can always reach out to us. I hope that you participate in lots of questions and just appreciate your working to become educators. Kavita put that email address for questions into the chat. Kavita, do you want to say anything at the end here?
Just thank you, Paula, for a lovely, engaging session, and thank you to our students, Wendy and Yi Ying, for your interesting questions and ideas. Thank you for being here. We hope you enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this
Have a good one.
interesting session.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.